State-sponsored cyber attacks are targeting almost every major institution. For Tech Republic and ZDNet, my name is Dan Patterson with Carson Sweet. He is the CTO of CloudPassage. Carson, all right, state-sponsored attacks are on the rise. Entities are using tactics reminiscent of the Cold War. I wonder if you could bring us inside, help us understand what these tactics are, and really what this means for business who could also be targets of state-sponsored attacks.
Sure, and I'd be happy to. So state-sponsored attacks, I think, are on the rise as we see these things happening. Our analysis is that from a political perspective, cyber attacks are easier to execute to begin with. They're also much more palatable by both organizations that are trying to not upset their constituencies too badly. Some organizations, some states care less about that than others, but in any case, on the political stage of the world, it's much more palatable to commit a cyber attack and not see, actual carnage on screens and things like that, but they can have just as devastating an effect in many cases to economies and to operations. So this is a very clear reason that cyber attacks are much more popular. They're also much less expensive to execute by a state organization. One of the things that we've seen recently, you probably recall, there's been a recent revelation that third parties have been engaged by ostensibly the Russian intelligence organizations to commit cyber attacks that could be with their knowledge or without. But the idea of using third party or external assets is not a new thing. That's something that's been an intelligence practice for a very long time. Most case officers actually spend a significant part of their time depending on their assignment, developing assets and having those assets execute certain tactics for them. So this is something that actually creates a level of separation between the nation state. Pardon me, you can edit that out. This creates a degree of separation between the nation state that wants to commit whatever cyber action they have in mind and the actual execution of it. So it makes it more difficult to track the nation state that's actually committing these. So this is something that's relatively new. In the last couple of years we've seen, and it is very reminiscent of using sort of unconnected assets out in the real world to do things that you would rather not be associated with. So we do see an increase. We think this increase will continue. We think that the targets are economic targets in many cases. The critical infrastructure have always been targets. That's been the case for some years. But the idea that economic disruption and now political disruption can be affected are where these things are happening. They're going to continue to happen. You mentioned the warnings that the Russians may try to meddle with the midterm elections. I would say they're probably already trying to do so. The last sort of significant hit that we saw was related to voter databases, the voting rolls essentially. And those are generally targets you would not think of as particularly high security targets, so perhaps a little bit easier to penetrate, but certainly has the capability to disrupt the political process.